we live in a world that is just getting like scarcity is on the rise. It's getting like so much more expensive. So I just feel like if I'm going to be like asking for people's like energy and for like monetary resources from them, I have to be like really intentional about like why. I like often talk about this. There's like no third spaces left. Like there's like not a lot of places I feel like people just go to have a sort of just like basic human connection that like they can experience like catharsis. So I'm just like really focused on like how do we like flip this unorthodox space into something that like feels interesting, that encourages a type of like social acupuncture. Politics feel like they have a place in dance music, as they should, and a lot of people are a lot more critical about like what's happening in these spaces, and they obviously are inherently political spaces, especially as we just like come into this new reality where like everyone's broke. Like one of the things that's really important in my practice is to teach other people and to also be like really honest, because I feel like it like disempowers the things that like work to oppress us, and it also just it can spark somebody else.
Hello, BAMBII.
Hi.
Hey, thank you for being here today. Welcome to London.
Thank you so much.
I guess thinking about, actually, before I even get into it, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. I'm like kind of stuck that it's raining, but I guess it's like typical for here. But yeah, I'm good actually.
Yeah. I feel like it's humbling sometimes to have the rain.
Yeah, you're like, I can't be as fun as I want to be today, so it's fine.
And you're from Toronto, obviously. I'm curious about the connective tissues between Toronto and London, because as an outsider to Toronto, like it seems like there's quite a few things.
There's a lot of cultural crossover. I feel like you're like less cool, like younger sister kind of vibe, like because obviously there's like a similar kind of like immigration history. There's a huge Caribbean influence, obviously. So, like, we have a lot of the same slang. I feel like we haven't kept up with a lot of the same music, but those seeds have been sown in a lot of ways. So, like, when I come here, it feels really, like, familiar. Even, like, the first few times I was ever here, I was like, oh, this, like, makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, I feel like if I think about, like, Caribbean diaspora, like, there's a lot of that influence in both those scenes, I guess.
Exactly.
And thinking about that, I would love to look back at your party, Jerk, which you started back in 2013.
Yeah.
It's not only in the running of a party in of itself, but I guess making a space that's specifically centering marginalized people, being inclusive, being a safer space, for want of a better word. Like, what have your learnings been from running and creating that party been so far?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you touched on a lot of them. Like, I definitely would say when I started the event, I didn't come in with that, like, political framework. It was kind of like, I just want to hear all these different kinds of music in this kind of a space with all my friends. Like, it was a really simple ask, and it's really, as the party has grown and become this sort of like public engagement, then now I feel like almost responsible or like accountable to people to create, like you said, a safer space, to just sort of like always up the production quality. I feel like we live in a world that is just getting like scarcity is on the rise. It's getting like so much more expensive. So I just feel like if I'm going to be like asking for people's like energy and for like monetary resources from them, I have to be like really intentional about like why. So there's a lot of intention that goes into like what the physical before you even start with like the programming and the bookings and the DJs, like simply like what is the physical space, like what's the visceral experience when you walk into this, because I just think I like often talk about this. There's like no third spaces left. Like there's like not a lot of places I feel like people just go to have a sort of just like basic human connection that like they can experience like catharsis. So I'm just like really focused on like how do we like flip this unorthodox space into something that like feels interesting, that encourages a type of like social acupuncture. So I think there's so many things that I just feel responsible to people because it feels like participatory. It feels like mutual. It doesn't feel like, I think a lot of people, especially in music, there's a dynamic where like I'm the artist and these are my fans, and I quite like appreciate the dynamic of like starting in the rave space or starting as a curator, because the dynamic feels a lot more collaborative, which I like obviously prefer. So yeah, I feel like I've learned so many, I think especially now as like politics feel like they have a place in dance music, as they should. And a lot of people are a lot more critical about like what's happening in these spaces. And they obviously are inherently political spaces, especially as we just like, come into this new reality where like everyone's broke.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I do want to get back into that side of things. I
said a lot.
Yeah. Thinking about some of the things that you have learned from like over a decade of putting on these parties, what are the things that you feel bigger promoters can maybe learn from like the grassroots kinds of events about inclusivity?
I mean, I feel like the better bookings are always at DIY events. I feel like it's oddly like bigger promotional companies take less creative risks with their lineups. Like it just feels like repeat lineups, where I feel like DIY collectives globally always try to push the envelope almost seemingly like monthly every single time they do an event. There's like such an intention, and there's so much more research being done. I just feel like it always seems like somehow the people with more resources are like dumber. Like there's just like a less motivation to just like be cutting edge, or to be, I don't know, there's like a laziness that comes with being rich. I don't know, I guess that's another story. But yeah, I just feel like, it seems like the heart to want to show people something else will always exist, like in the depths of the underground, I guess. Yeah.
I'm conscious that when we talk about the underground, a lot of that conversation ends up being quite Eurocentric, quite UK-centric. And, I would love to know more about the realities of this stuff in North America. Like, what is it like being an underground dance artist there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's definitely like right off the top, there's less like I think general literacy around dance music, because we have just less of a, I think, mainstream history. Like I feel like in the UK, the common person kind of has an understanding of like electronic music, where I still feel like it's really like siloed in North America, and it's fair in Toronto. We've had eras that have begun and ended, but right now people are still kind of in this generation still kind of getting familiar, I would say, on a like mass level. But Toronto has had like a history of like rave culture before, but it just had a hard stop due to like government bylaws. So I would say there's like, we're going through like a resurgence, but we definitely have like less spaces, less money, and just less like, I think, municipal like willingness to like kind of make it feel like oh, this is our global reputation. Like it's definitely not happening on a massive level, but there is something very significant like on a grassroots level. Like I say it all the time, Pep Rally, Lotion Mag, like there's a lot of like local collectives who are like really pushing it forward at a very high level. Yeah.
Do you think in some ways, like from what you were saying about things kind of falling off at a higher level, do you think in some ways it's kind of nicer to keep things in those smaller spaces?
I think so too. I do. I think that I think sometimes people romanticize like underground, especially within the last year. I feel like I read a lot of takes online where it seems like people who actually have never really lived off of music or lived off of organizing have a lot of opinions on like exactly like how sustainable that ecosystem is. And, as much as I think that like, that is where culture is happening, I would appreciate if like me and my peers could eat and pay our rent, and you know what I mean, and not be like, I definitely don't romanticize like poverty, and like I don't romanticize like just scarcity. So I would love to see people that I think actually most deserve it to have like more resources and more like prosperity within that scene. I don't think that like art needs struggle to inherently be cutting edge, and I think people like always marry those two ideas. I don't really believe that. So
yeah, I think there's a tendency to be like, you know, the struggle makes good art. And it's like, I feel like maybe I would make better art if I wasn't struggling.
it also makes people quit. You know, like I've seen a lot of people quit. So that's a real thing.
We're talking about, I guess, a musical economy that sort of plays off exploitation in the name of exposure quite often. So I kind of have to get into Coachella with you.
Coachella, okay.
We're going to talk about Coachella.
Where's she going with this?
I mean, obviously, so for people who aren't aware, earlier this year, the scandal. Well, I guess, yeah, earlier this year, you played Coachella, you played the Do-Lab stage.
The Do-Lab stage, yeah.
And there were issues with the sound system. Yeah, not only were there issues with the sound system, but also in the first place, you were not being paid to be there, and had to make your own way to get there and back in the first place. I guess, like, why did it feel important for you to speak out about this?
I mean, I feel like, you know, I am not naive to the fact that the industry is very pay to play. So just to be very transparent, that is not my first time that I've played a gig and not been paid and have had to sort of pay my way. Like, that this has been a consistent thing throughout my entire career, where it's like you get an opportunity and you sort of weigh out particular factors and you realize, okay, you know what, I'm not being paid, but this is an exposure gig and it's worth it, you know? So when the gig popped up a year before, I was like, okay, like, this is like a huge stage. It's a huge opportunity. Like, let me take this on. Let me like use my personal resources. It's essentially like obviously an investment at the end of the day. Is it fair? I think at the default level, it's already starting at a problematic place, but I, as so many artists, accepted it, obviously. I think in that moment, it's important to speak out because I feel like, you know, quite simply, like, if you are going to create this already kind of like unequal power dynamic of like, okay, we're going to pay you with exposure, the least that can be offered is a working sound system, is the infrastructure working, because in that case, then I am not being paid in anything. So I've actually lost about 3 times. I've like lost money. I've showed up, maybe not 3 times, but like, but my point is that like I'm not being paid in anything. It's like I can't, you're not even making good on your end of the deal because now I can't express myself. I can't perform. I think a lot of, like, it was strange because I felt like it was all over a lot of people's heads. Like, a lot of people have a lot of internalized capitalism and feel like, oh, like, you should be grateful for anything. And they like lack the imagination to just like reimagine any kind of future that could be more fair for artists. It was like the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you get much backlash?
I did. Like, obviously, you know, I think most people, like, obviously when it's happening and it's like going viral on the internet and people are just like hitting you on all sides, like everyone's like, don't read the comments. I went and read the comments, obviously, like anybody would. Like, and, you know, in the moment it feels like people are really against you, but like, as I have some like space and time from it, I do feel like the people who are supposed to understand where I'm coming from. But it's a shame because I feel like the music industry really shows us how people operate when there's no rules, you know what I mean? Like, what people at their default, how they value other human beings, you know, and that's why I think you see such an assault on ethics and care within this industry, and like people really loving to recreate capitalism in the highest form. You know, it was really sad because I'm like, people are almost trying to like feel almost better for being exploited, and it almost becomes a way, you know what I mean, like a badge of honor. And I guess I was just honest because I feel like a lot of people, you know, right now we're living in a space where like, you know, you want, the pick is the asset. To post the picture, the story at the whatever institution or whatever platform is the asset. And it just felt like deeply dishonest to just post the picture with no context when I know that like me and all the other artists on that platform were not treated fairly. Like, yeah.
And I think, you know, we were talking about scarcity earlier. Like, I think it's a really brave thing to do. And I know, like, that sounds kind of patronizing, but I don't mean it that way. But I just think in an industry which is already kind of precarious, regardless of who you are, then like to be a woman in that space, to be a black woman in that space, you know, like I think anyway, like in my experience as a brown woman in these spaces, you are very often made to feel like, you know, you're not enough for that space
you're
already.
Lucky you're even here.
You're lucky you're here,
You're
lucky to be
you're
here.
Exactly.
So then like, you know, to be like, actually, I was not treated correctly in this situation, I'm going to speak up about this. Like that takes guts, right?
Definitely. I mean, I think I already kind of have a big mouth, so it's probably less guts for me. But definitely, I also know that, you know, the industry or just institutions in general do not reward like transparency. Like the reason the industry continues to operate is because everyone collectively is quiet. Everyone collectively glosses over the bad stuff, and it continues the machine over and over again. And I guess, you know, I guess I'll never get booked at Coachella again, which is completely fine, but I just feel more in integrity with myself. So yeah,
I think it's fine.
yeah, I'll be okay.
But even just thinking about like the sound system specifically, you know, like I feel like festivals have become such a mainstay of the touring circuit now.
Definitely.
But like it's kind of a staple at a lot of festivals where the sound system is just not that good. And then it's kind of like everyone's getting shortchanged in that experience.
I mean, this one was crazy because I feel like, I don't know, I tried to be as clear as possible, but like the music was like cutting out to silence. It wasn't like, oh, it's too quiet. Like it was cutting to silence, like dead air silence for the entire day. And I just, I feel like festivals are like operating like malls almost, or like circuses. Like they're quickly like assembled and quickly disassembled, and there's like not a lot of like care with the infrastructure working at a certain level. I totally agree.
Are there things that you think could be done to shift that in future?
I mean, I think that is just more representative of how we view music in general right now. I think the lack of care is just like the paradigm we're in about how we view how long it even takes to make music, like how much we value artists. Like it connects back to like streaming platforms and like how that has really shaped the relationship, you know, between the public and music at large. So I think the industry is in a very particular place right now, and there's like a lot of erasure and devaluing. So I don't think it starts at the music festivals. It starts, so, you know, at a much more like insidious place.
Yeah, we've kind of touched on this, but you know, it's been 5 years since, I guess, a lot of people posted black squares. You know, there's been a lot of conversation about like people finally recognizing whitewashing in cultural spaces, particularly in dance music. But from your perspective, I would love to know whether you feel like that's purely been optics. Are things actually changing?
I mean, I think that on some level, like, you know, there's a bit more, some people have a bit more visibility, but I would say overall it's most optics. Like I think if you look at, you know, all the major festivals, you look at the bookings, like they pretty much have remained like white male. You know, maybe there's an exception of a few people, but I would definitely not say that I've seen this like massive overhaul where like, you know, the bookings have truly diversified. I also think that, you know, some people get let in, some people are participating in the industry a particular way, they experience motion a particular way, and we hyperfixate on those people. But I don't think like, we haven't gotten to a place where it's like normalized to have like black and brown bills. I think we're in a place where like black and brown people have to almost remove themselves and create their own spaces. They might receive a few more resources than we were like maybe a decade ago. But yeah, in terms of like massive like those institutions with the most resources are not doing nearly enough. I think it's entered the rhetoric. It has not entered the action. You know what I mean? So
I think it's interesting as well, thinking about, not to keep bringing it back to Dulab,
yeah.
but
We
you know,
can.
like But you know, I think the idea that a lot of people who were performing were kind of upcoming,
Definitely,
like, you know, like, but it's interesting that maybe you can look at a festival lineup and be like, oh no, like here are all these like rising women or whatever, but it's like the reality is it's like they're not getting paid, they're not getting like so it just doesn't feel sustainable as a structure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people are really like, again, that's how the industry thrives, is off lack of transparency. So you can look at something like that and be like, oh, amazing, like they're at this place that is regarded as one of the best festivals in the world, but nobody is really understanding actually how it operates, and that, you know, we're all making very different sacrifices to be here right now. So
thinking back to your journey in general, while we're on this topic of kind of, I guess, like speaking up as a marginalized person, in a space that over the past couple decades has been dominated by white people, men particularly. How did you find the confidence to kind of enter this space at a point where you were still kind of learning as you were going, right? Like both as a DJ and then as a producer, like you were kind of learning in real time, right?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So like, how did you be like, yeah, I'm going to do this?
I mean, I think I've gone probably a little bit slower than I would have gone if I came from, you know what I mean? If I like was a boy, like, you know what I mean? I think I've definitely, you know, even my journey into like making music has been a lot slower, just because of like the profound hesitation when you don't see anybody who like looks like you trying to do that particular thing. So I definitely feel like I've been learning on the go, and I kind of look at everything like a staircase. So like every time I've been able to like complete a song and put that out, I'm now like standing on an accomplishment that I can kind of like see a little bit more into like the kind of future I want. So I feel like my own, you know, maybe small sort of like wins kind of work to like validate me. And obviously I just feel like, you know, my community goes really hard for me. My friends go really hard for me. My mom goes like super hard for me. And all these things work to kind of like make me not feel crazy when I'm attempting things that feel like, whoa, like I don't even have like one example or one pathway, you know, that are previously exists. But I definitely feel like I'm like definitely like learning on the go, for especially like entering like the space of being a producer and trying to be an artist. And yeah, it feels like every day I'm learning something new. Yeah.
And do you feel like it's important in that vein to kind of be knowledge sharing with people like you?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that, first of all, music is really, it's like one of the most mystified mediums, and the infrastructure around music is like, as I keep saying, is like also really mystified. And I feel like one of the things that's really important in my practice is to teach other people and to also be like really honest, because I feel like it like disempowers the things that like work to oppress us. And it also just, you know, it can spark somebody else somewhere else that you don't even know to, you know, make their own way. So,
well, like even thinking about like the DJ workshops you sometimes do, like, which I think have typically centered femmes, right?
Yeah.
So like, is there, like, why is that important to you to do?
I mean, I think it's important because if I can just use myself as like proof of concept. It's like when I started DJing, no one would teach me. There were barely any women who were DJing. You know, I think it would have been, I was able to do it on my own, but it would have been so much more beneficial if I just had one woman who's like, here, let me show you, you know? And the same thing with producing. It's like I've you know, thrown myself in the deep end, and I have learned from picked up things from many men and women, and, you know, kind of created the context for myself to learn. But how much better would it be if the resource just existed, if a woman was doing a workshop, which is why I teach production workshop. You know, it's just, I think that, you know, when we talk about production, when we talk about an artist at all, I think that people feel like talent is like locked up in chance, when it's actually more locked up in resources and socioeconomic background. I actually think that everybody is inherently talented and could have a go at music. but depending on like their upbringing, depending on their exposure, they may not. And that's why it feels like talent is like kind of God-given, when I actually think that there's a lot of people probably have incredible perspectives on music that we'll never hear from because they don't have access to resources. That's it.
No, completely. And I feel like you were talking about at the beginning, like economically everywhere, like things are getting worse, and then like access to those kinds of resources is just kind of dwindling, right?
Exactly.
I am conscious that, you know, if you were a dude, like I probably wouldn't be asking half these questions. And is this okay?
No, it's totally okay. You know, it's so funny that you're saying that, because I actually wrote I was like 3 days ago, like thinking about actually everything that we're talking about. And I wrote it all out, as I like often do. And I feel like, oh, wow, like this, I think a lot of people perceive when like you have takes like this, or when you really kind of come at the industry from this like critical point of view, it seems like so negative and it seems so bleak. But I just feel like I've just been thinking lately, I'm like, if as soon as you start treating something as like an immovable truth, it kind of just like frees you. You know what I mean? Like it kind of feels like, okay, these things about the industry are probably not going to change very much within my lifetime. So now I'm free to kind of not give a fuck. Like now I'm free to kind of like make the exact music that I want to make without, you know, I don't know, just kind of like, it makes me feel like I'm actually disengaging, whereas like pretending that those things are not real almost makes me like feel like I'm wrapped up in it. I'm not free of it. You know, like knowing that these things are real, knowing that these things are kind of like fundamental, I feel like I can like more remove myself, and it truly becomes about like me versus me. It's not about trying to like play this game or be in some competition or pretend like these hierarchies don't exist. I don't know. That's like the way that I've been thinking about it, because I related it to like, oh, like, why don't I own a condo? Why don't I own a house yet? And I'm like, it's capitalism's fault. It's like, it's the housing crisis. Like, how mad am I going to be that I'm like not fucking rich as shit? You know, it's not my fault. So I feel like the same thing. Like, when we remove ourselves, and we're just like free to do whatever we want. So,
yeah, that's quite a freeing feeling, I guess.
yeah.
Do you think that there are things that we can be like materially pushing for?
Definitely.
Like, so it's not something that's like, well, within my lifetime, this just isn't going to change.
I mean, I definitely, when I say that, I mean this on the most macro level possible, right? So I think often when you talk about things on a very macro level and you zoom all the way out, it feels like you're powerless. And I think people often skip over all the interpersonal things you can do that are actually like mean so much. So I just like, to me, like, make it as simple as possible. Like, can you teach 5 people around you a skill that you have that like really like brings a certain like quality to their life or to their arts practice? Yes, you can. So then you should do it. You know, I think that I love anything local, because I think that it's like using the power that you have to directly influence your waking reality. I can't influence the reality of the entire, no one person can influence the reality of like the entire world. But I think that, you know, anything local, anything happening in your own city, like deserves your attention. It deserves your attention before even making a comment online. You know what I mean? Like looking directly at like somebody in your life is like always going to be the most important, most satisfying, most gratifying, and like most real. It's more real than anything else you can do to like help, like directly help your community, like literally person to person. So I think that, yeah, anything I say, I'm talking about on a macro level. On a micro level, I definitely feel like in service, and I feel very like useful. And I do these things change in my community all the time. It's like, it's definitely not a static thing. It's always in motion, you know? I just think institutions, unfortunately, are not in motion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
In June, Infinity Club 2 is coming.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to it, and I've been thinking about a lot of the stuff we've been talking about today, actually, about inclusivity, but also knowledge sharing in some ways. And I think it's something that your music does really well, is like, you know, it's really playful, it's really fun, but there is also like, on a deeper level, like it's like there are all these sonic and genre touchstones that it's like it is like
Thank
it sounds
you for
kind
saying
of
that. I appreciate you saying that.
it's like it sounds very dorky, but like it is kind of educational in some ways, right? So like for you, where are you at with this new record? Like, what are you trying to do, and what are you hoping people get from
I mean, yeah, I think you like kind of answered it for me, but you know, it's called Infinity Club 2 because it's like a continuation of just this idea of like that I feel so influenced by, of just like global club music, like trying to bring the multitude of all my influences from being like a DJ and like playing all over the world into this like one place. And I think that, yeah, the music is like really fun. It's really kind. It's really like you want to go to the rave, you want to go to the club, but on a deeper level, I've really tried to like make a point to sonically expose people to like, okay, this is what's happening in Brazil. This is what's happening in Berlin. This is what's happening in London. This is, you know what I mean? Like in terms of like drum breaks or synth patterns or vocals or whatever, writing. I think that the record feels really good to me because I feel like finished with the idea. Like I feel like I can find it like depart, and it feels a lot of like my DJ self is kind of like talking a lot there still. And yeah, I think it feels like a scramble to like say all these things at once. I think I'm still trying to do that, where I feel like on my next record I'll be like more comfortable being like a little bit more simple. Like, you know, I think I'm trying to like condense a lot into one. But yeah, I don't know, I'm always saying like I make really fun music because I think the world is a shitty place. So I'm just trying to like, I want people to like suspend their, you know, their imagination for a second, like pretend like we're all in the club together as much as possible. And that's what the record's about.
I think that's a beautiful aspiration.
Thank you.
So can you just talk to me a little bit about that journey from deciding you wanted to put on a party where there was music you actually wanted to dance to like getting on the decks yourself, to starting to produce, to like where you are now?
I mean, yeah, I feel like everything happened so like slapdash. Like I feel like me deciding to DJ is like, I feel like when people like decide they're gonna DJ, it's like coming out as gay. They're like, I'm gonna be a DJ. Like it really wasn't like that. I just was like, you know, it was an accident. Like I fell into it, you know, like it really actually came from like a bossy place of like, you're not playing what I organized a party. And the DJ I booked like was just like not translating what I wanted to be translated. So I just started playing the music. And then later I realized like that made me a DJ. Like I wasn't really trying to DJ, I would say. And production definitely came from my first ever manager. I have to shout him out, Nick, who kind of like, you know, with his hand on my back really pushed me into producing, because I feel like at that time, especially like music felt like just this huge undertaking. Like it felt like a crazy, you know, I feel like I kind of like had DJing like locked down, but like the idea of even like making my own song felt really insane. And yeah, I think with a lot of encouragement and just a lot of hours, I just gradually just like gained confidence. I feel like as soon as you like can finish one thing, suddenly you're like, you know, you can kind of like, you have like more of a clarity and you have more like proof of concept, like, oh wait, like I can actually do this. So it's definitely been gradual, because sometimes I still sit and I'm like, can I do this? Like, but yeah, I think the more things I make, the more I'm like, you know, it's the more just like self-belief I have, where I'm like understanding, okay, like this is actually like who I am. I actually can do this, and I can do this at will. It's not like a fluke. Like I can actually like produce this. I can produce a skill anytime I want, you know?
I think I'm often reading about how DJs increasingly feel like they also have to be producers.
I've been reading this argument.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think they're separate mediums, and I think that now, because of capitalism and like, you know, people need to like, it's cool in a one way, because I feel like producers were really unseen before. So it's a cool way to connect to this person that has made your songs, sure. But I also think that, yeah, it's the sort of like those things working in tandem now is definitely kind of like a capitalist move. That being said, like I don't feel like, I don't know, that's not why I started producing. Like I actually just genuinely like wanted to make music as soon as I like got in the flow of it. But unfortunately, yeah, I would say the industry is definitely like, it's hyper competitive. It's oversaturated. So obviously bringing another skill to the table is going to like up your cachet. There is something to be said because I watch sets where the DJ has actually made the songs that they're playing, and there is a magic in obviously playing it's a different kind of expression. It's a different kind of connection that you're having with the crowd. So I'm not anti DJ producer. I'm just saying that I think DJing in its own right is a very valid medium. Like, I hear people say like, oh, she or he is like just a DJ. Like, I think DJing is it's a full artistic medium that takes a very particular set of skills and shouldn't be like it's facing this like devaluing. It's also oversaturated too, so that's part of it. But yeah, it's a shame. It sucks because I just think that they're very separate things and one does not make you good at the other. So yeah.
Do you feel like for you the practices have at least informed each other in some ways?
I mean, I think that DJing informed me making music because DJing for me just involved a lot of research. So I just like amassed so many hours of listening to so many kinds of music that when I sat down, I just feel like I kind of have a clear image of like the kind of music I want to make or what I'm trying to say. I think like my reference points feel very like immediate in my head because I've always heard music as a DJ and been like, I wish I made this, you know what I mean? So I think it's definitely in terms of like I don't want to like toot my own horn, but like my taste level, I feel like is very informed by just like hours and hours of research. Yeah.
And we kind of got into this earlier, but thinking about like the connections between Toronto and London, like with some of your sets, there's a lot of references to kind of jungle, UKG, that kind of stuff. Like, but I guess there's also references to, like Brazilian music. So like, is it important to you to kind of use your work as a platform?
For a platform for definitely ideas. I think that like, weirdly, I think music discovery and music exploration is like almost like vanishing. Like I think we're in an era where like everyone is relying heavily on streaming platforms to like tell them what they like. Like not a lot of people I think are going out of their way to like, proactively curate what music they're consuming. And that being said, like there's so much music that they're missing. There's so many things that people do not know and also are almost like hesitant to even hear, so I definitely think a lot of me making music is like exposure is a theme. I'm like, if you like this, you're definitely gonna like these 5 other things, so can you just like take my hand and like be brave, yeah.
That's nice. Obviously like that dedication and devotion to music is something that you've sort of had throughout your career, but even before you decided to get on the decks, like I was reading that you because you're an only child, like you spent like a lot of time yes, like with music, which like I related to fully, like but like what do you think it is about the kind of music that you make and play that like connected with you so early on? Like why is it?
I mean, I wouldn't say that's a good question. I think because as an only child, I was like just subjected to like whatever my mom was listening to. But that being said, she has amazing taste. I would say that like obviously the breadth of music I listen to right now is like pretty wide, but I would say the fixation on music definitely comes from like being a kid, like I don't know if I'm like a little bit on the spectrum, but like I would really, the way that I would consume things would be like this one part over and over and over again for hours. And like I just really liked earworms, and I feel like as a producer I'm like trying to kind of make those very like hypnotic, like addictive moments, that's like my goal as a producer. I would like love to, I guess everybody like wants to make a hit, but like I think underneath, like it's not about the numbers. Like I would love to make something that like is so powerful that like everyone wants to listen to, like it's getting ran up over and over again, because that's just like an earworm. Like that just means like your brain just like loves it so much. Like that's what I'm like trying to get to. So I think that, yeah, it's definitely like that fixation comes from like being a kid, and like my only thing that I had was music. Like I didn't have a TV in my room, and for a lot of when I was younger, I also didn't have a computer in my room, so I just had a radio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And you know, I feel like there's a sense in which, for quite a long time anyway, in talking about the mainstream of underground dance music is like a weird way of framing it, but I think that there's been like a period wherein like it was quite serious, you know, like I feel like dudes who know about techno and like, you know, like it's like a very specific,
like so hyper intellectualized. Yeah, for sure.
And so like for you, when you were like breaking into the space, like did you feel either pressure to sort of behave in that way in any sense, to sort of show that you know what you're doing? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I definitely, that's such a good question, because I feel like, yes, I definitely like experienced that like kind of like heady, pretentious personality. Like you don't know this person or this, like you're saying names and dates, and like to be honest, like I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't really know what you're talking about. I definitely experienced that kind of like, this is an insider club that you could never be involved in. I also think because I don't know, I felt already inherently like an outsider. Like first, I'm a girl and I'm Black and I'm like very Caribbean, so I already felt like not even considered in, like, you know, people are already like, immediately when I'm entering electronic spaces, people are already kind of like making judgments and treating you like an outsider. So I think I didn't really internalize that much, because I never really felt like a part of it, which therefore gave me the freedom to do whatever the fuck I wanted anyway. So I think that, you know, a lot of how I navigated as a DJ had less to do with like songs as symbols or songs to show that I knew, but more like intuitively reacting to like what I heard. Like I would go online, I would do research, I would pull songs that I like and I would play them. I think that the headiest part of me like doing like, oh, this very obscure artist, blah, 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 that kind of maybe came later. Like, I'm not interested in obscurity for obscurity's sake, which is how a lot of people get a lot of, like, cred in dance music. Like, I'm just interested in, like, just music. If it's really familiar in that particular time, that's really cool. It could even be considered pop or part of, like, current zeitgeist. I don't care about that. Like, I'm just interested in, like, what does a song, like, make people feel? So... yeah.
And over time, has it shifted for you, like what you want people to be feeling during your sets?
Yeah, I definitely want to teach people. So I definitely think there's a deep element of research of just like, I am definitely playing, I would say, majority of music that people don't know, for sure. You can definitely say that, but it's like, I definitely am more interested in like bridging the gap.
Do you feel like the things that you want people to get from your sets, like does that shift over time?
Yeah, I mean, has it shifted over time? Yeah, I think what's shifted over time is I don't feel like I'm for everyone. Like I feel like people treat DJs almost like wedding singers, kind of like like I feel more like I just need to be in front of the crowd that I know gets me, where I think people are like, you just have to like adapt to every crowd. Like I think like I actually have been doing it long enough where I feel comfortable with being disliked. I'm like, okay, I don't like you either. Like it's completely fine. It's like, it's not a fit. Like I think over time, like there is something I'd like to communicate, but I also need it communicated back. I think it's like, it's definitely a conversation. So I think, yeah, I just want to be in dialogue with the right people at all times. That's like my aim as an artist. Yeah.
And we've been talking about knowledge sharing. I'm curious about your experience working with Coachella on Raven. Just, you know, obviously incredible album. Like, what was it like for you kind of entering that space, and were there things that you took away from that?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think just from the friendship in general, like I think she's someone who's like such a trailblazer, and, you know, she's just given me like such a playbook that is like completely invaluable. And then just as an artist and as a writer and as a arranger, like I feel like I really kind of got the groundwork for song arrangement, like I got almost like fast tracked a bit from working on that album with her. So it's just been like, yeah, incredibly like influential. Yeah, in so many ways. So many ways. Yeah.
And what from that experience did you take to Infinity Club then?
Song arrangement.
Yeah.
Song arrangement. Like Khalil is like an amazing writer and a very clever song arranger. Does anyone say song arranger? And yeah, I feel like, yeah, I think that definitely coming from a DJ perspective, you are not thinking about composition and song arrangement are like some of the last the skills that you kind of learn last. And I feel like song structure is something that I really like learned on the go when I was like working on Raven with her, that I kind of like, I feel like took and applied it now, where I'm like understanding like what makes a song and how people connect to the songs. Yeah, that was like the big one, I think. Yeah.
With the first part of Infinity Club as well, like how are you feeling about that in retrospect? Like, because the reception was rightfully amazing for it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I feel good. I feel good. I'm like sometimes I still like, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I made anything at all. So I feel really, yeah, I don't know. I feel really good. Like, I think making music is so fucking hard. Like, I like was at the first, like I'm doing these listening parties in Toronto, New York, and London. And the Toronto one, like after a while of making music, it feels so crazy to play so much of the music. You're like surrounded by like all your children. Like I feel so like grateful to myself almost that I like kept like followed through and like kept a promise. I feel like, yeah, it feels like I made a bunch of promises and I kept them, because that's, every song feels like a promise until you see it all the way through. So I just feel like, wow, I'm so happy that I like saw this through, and this is now like a complete thing. Like it takes, you know, I'm so in awe of like other musicians, because like music takes so much labor, it takes so much like brain time. That's so people are so disconnected from that, like really how many hours you are sitting in solitude to create these things. So I'm just like, wow, that's so, you know, I'm still there, like I'm still in awe that like I finished it, because I'm like so ADD.
Do you feel like when you listen back to it now, like, do you still recognize it as being of you? Because I feel like sometimes with old pieces of work, it's a bit like, oh wait, I did that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually will like put it on as if I'm just a consumer. Like if I'm just like, oh, I just like want to listen to this. So it's weird because it kind of has like a life that doesn't have anything to do with me. Like I will literally put on a song I made just because, like not on some like, oh, I killed this. I just like want to listen to this kind of vibe. So that's kind of interesting. But it definitely feels like mine. Like it definitely feels like I like intimately me. Like I feel like a lot of people in interviews are like, who are you? Like and they ask you this question, but I would like, I don't know. I feel like my songs really represent like my personality. Like it sounds like me. Yeah.
And you know, you wear a lot of different hats in your job, I guess. You know, like you're producer, DJ, but also like promoter. Like, looking back on the past decade or so now, like what are the big things that you've learned, things that you would maybe do differently now with hindsight?
What would I do differently? That's a good question. Maybe talk less. No, I don't take that back. No, what would I do differently? I don't think a lot of things. I think I've like had a lot of like luck, you know. I don't feel like, you know, like the industry is like very hard, you know, and it's like really unfair. But I also think like I have had a lot of luck and like a lot of like love and care around me. So I don't feel so much like it's like, I don't feel so like, you know, I don't think I have like a lot of regret. I think sometimes I feel like I wish I did things faster. I was like, I think I experienced like a lot of like fear with everything that I did, like feeling like I wasn't good enough to do a particular thing, especially with like making music. I think that if I like had more confidence, I would have moved faster and therefore gotten to my ideas faster. Like sometimes I feel like, oh, I wish I wasn't so much of a pussy, like kind of. But I also feel like it's not my fault. You know, I just didn't have like particular examples, didn't have particular role models. But yeah, I think that would be the only thing is like I just wish I like, you know, came into myself a little sooner, because I actually feel so much like myself when I'm making music. So yeah.
I guess it's all part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I guess for other people who maybe feel like outsiders in this space, but who are wanting to get behind the decks or like start making stuff, like what would your advice be to them now?
Do your research. Yeah, I think that like right now, because it's so saturated, I think that that's going to be ultimately the thing that sets people apart. Like I can kind of hear who's like playing on a topical level because it's so, you know what I mean, who's playing on top, if that makes sense. And I can hear the difference between who's doing that and the person who's actually like put in time. I think that's really the only currency. That's the only way to set yourself apart like what's the thing you have when everybody can DJ and everybody can get a controller and everyone can post this or blah blah. It's like you kind of at the end of the day it almost equalizes everything because all you have is your ideas, and we have better ideas the more research we do. So I would say just like make sure that you do your research. You know what you're playing and why you're playing it. Yeah.
And the new EP is obviously about to come out. Like beyond that, what are your plans for the next while?
To make a ton of fucking music. I just like want to I feel like I have so many, like I need to make this kind of song, I need to make this kind of song, and they're all kind of different. And I guess I just want to like establish myself as like, you know, I want people to subscribe to the idea that like, oh, like she's gonna make like 10 different genres, and I'm okay with that. Like I think the artists that we really look up to are the ones that have been able to like knit these sort of like disparate ideas together, and I kind of hope to be that kind of artist. So yeah, I want to make a ton of music. And what is my other, I would love to like really solidify my like production workshop series. Like I really love teaching people how to produce and to get really good at piano.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out my piano teacher.
How is piano going?
I love it. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed.
Okay, well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for your time, BAMBII.